Good morning.
Morning.
Hello from the office. If you caught Instagram, I said we were going to broadcast from this super flattering camera angle that we've got as well. Why are we in a car, Paul?
Because we haven't left the car in
No,
a day and a half.
exactly. Let's bring up capture on for a second. Oh, we'll try and stay in frame. Oh, it's because that camera zoomed a little bit. I'll scooch over.
We need to cuddle to keep warm.
Yeah. So this is the current situation, which we thought would be a bit more interesting and more fun than a ruined hotel room. But the reason why we're also in the car is due to this.
Hold on, I'll use our ball head.
I'll use the ball head. But the reason why we're in the car is to talk about this. And Paul, you just made this quickly this morning. And this is what, 12 hours, just over 12 hours of driving, which was since we last spoke to you when we were heading to this location.
Yeah.
Which this is just a quick iPhone snap. And then we did this stupid drive. I can't even remember where we started now, somewhere around here.
We started in
wasn't it?
Borgarnes. So in 30 hours, we've
Mhm.
done about 1,000 kilometres.
Yeah.
Including sleep somewhere.
Yeah,
somewhere
sleep
in there.
and some food.
So yeah, from dinner
For
time on.
Our sponsors, Mountain Dew, to stay awake. Yeah.
Mountain Dew, please sponsor us. So from where were we? Friday night through
Yep.
to Saturday night.
Mhm.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 locations.
Yeah.
All of them nowhere near each other.
No.
And basically what we got to was the point of the weather is changing. It's changing way too much.
Mhm.
Can't control exactly what's going on, so we will follow where that weather's going to give us a hole.
Yeah.
Which we did.
Yeah, we did, with some success as well.
Yeah.
Because when we left Borgarnes, we were heading up to
Go on.
this place on the map right up here. You can just see the cursor, which was that cool Art Deco lighthouse. More on that in a second. And then we headed down to these rocks, wasn't it? So that's me freezing, shooting these rocks. And then where did we go? What was the next thing?
We went to Glimmer. We went to a place called Viewpoint.
Viewpoint, yes, the beautifully named Viewpoint. What was Glimmer Waterfall? Oh, that was the long hike, which
you decided not to do.
Yeah, the 3-hour return hike, which was probably a good thing. We wouldn't have made it back in time. And then back to Reykjavik, check into a hotel, and then back out again
to
Seljalandsfoss.
Yeah. And then randomly we went to Skogafoss. Empty.
Which is one of the big names, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where is
There's
Skogafoss?
something weird going on in Iceland. So, and maybe it's so normally at Skogafoss.
Yeah.
Sea of people. There's more people than water at Skogafoss normally. But if you go there, handy hint, at 1:30 in the morning or around that time, you're going to get a pretty empty scene.
Yeah.
Now, what's weird, and as I say, I'm coming at this with a photographer's lens on. I'm seeing Reykjavik right now is busier than
super busy,
busier than the winter. So people come here, obviously Northern Lights shots and so on. But for it to be so busy here, and also out in the further places that we've been, at night, overnight, at midnight, it's empty.
Yeah.
And I get, and what's weird is I'm seeing loads of people with all the gear.
Yeah.
So all the pro tripods, the pro cameras, and everything like that. And no one shooting through midnight sun.
Which is crazy, actually, because we really haven't come across anyone, well, with the exception of 1 or 2 people who we've seen fleetingly. We've rarely seen anyone, actually, out of these locations. Yeah.
And the crazy thing for me is there are 2 benefits to midnight sun. Number one, you get a longer golden hour, in theory. We'll talk about that later, because interesting. But the second part is very simple, which is there's less people.
Yeah.
Now, I'm conscious of what I'm saying. If that then drives more people to come here, we've just ruined that. But there is a scenario where you can shoot the most iconic places in Iceland with no one around.
Yeah.
In golden light because everyone else is in bed.
Yeah.
So use it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And same for any other location as well, I guess.
Yeah.
If stay out
certainly
of
the northern ones.
The normal busy time. Yeah. I mean, this is
Seljalandsfoss.
Seljalandsfoss. which had a few people around, mostly because there was a campsite there, I guess.
And the guy that wanted to go swimming.
And so, yeah, funny story. As I was standing, Paul had left at this point, and then I was just standing close to where he was, and this guy in a hoodie and tracksuit bottoms. I mean, it was pretty cold. You can see, I mean, Paul's hardier than me, but you're still waterproofed from at least the waist up. Anyway.
My jeans are in the bin.
Yeah, really. And he said to me, if I go under that waterfall, do you think I'll be okay, or words to that effect? To which I said, no, I think you'd probably be pushed under or die or something like that. Plus, that's glacier water, right? So it's going to be cold. And I didn't think he was serious, but then you actually.
So he ran back to the car,
which was
good lad,
pretty hardcore, I have to say. But we got some nice pictures from there. Actually, the idea is with this location is to go. Did I get one? Yeah. So this is just an iPhone shot. It's to go behind the waterfall and get extremely wet. And then shoot where the sun was setting, but the clouds didn't quite cooperate, did they?
And just to set the scene, if you go back to that map,
this one.
So
this one,
yeah. So one of the things we talked about early on was about sort of flexibility. Now, bear in mind we had 3 centres that we were based on:
Reykjavik, Vik, and Borgarnes.
Yes. So in theory, we did the most stupid thing yesterday, which is spider out from the worst location to the furthest ones.
Yeah.
And in some cases going back on ourselves. But in practice, the northern side, I think someone asked, did you shoot the northwest fjords or whatever? No, because it was caked in cloud. I mean, the night before last, we were driving over one of the mountain passes, and you couldn't see the front of the car. And people always say that, like, oh, you couldn't see the front of the car. No, you literally could not see the front of the car.
Yeah.
So being in that thick a cloud, you've got 2 choices. You could get some sleep. We made a bad decision.
What?
We should have got some sleep.
Yeah.
So you can get some sleep, or you go somewhere else. And in this case, it was literally a case of let's chase that cloud cover. And, you know, sat having something to eat and working out, look, could we get lucky in this place? Okay, let's try it. And that's the reality. So if you're going to go on a photo trip, you know, don't be planning lunches and dinners in certain places and whatever, because you may end up somewhere completely different. And that's part of it.
Yeah, and then, you know, what I've learned really is a photo trip is very different to a holiday. I mean, you couldn't bring your family on a trip.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, you can bring a family trip. Bring your family on a trip like this because they hate you at the end of it. No one's going to want to watch you stand in the cold at midnight waiting for a cloud to move for 2 hours.
We've broken Tom. Tom, our video guy, normally sits
in the back.
He's dying in his room.
Yeah. But, you know, if you are going to go on a photo trip, like, I think the worst thing you could do is book on something that has a rigid timetable. Day 1, we're going to go here. Day 2, we're going to go here. Day 3, you know.
Because the clouds might not agree.
Exactly. And to be honest, out of 5-6 days or whatever, I've lost track now, we've seen like a good midnight sun, which was here, wasn't it, at the church, you know. But again, we saw one other guy with a camera there, didn't we? Yeah. And that was a stark difference to how, you know, it looked during the day. Still a nice shot, but it's still not to compare to that. So
and there's a, you know,
that's my chrome, mate. Okay. I forgot that was in there.
So that, as an aside, is kind of a key point when it comes to all the planning, the choices and the planning and all that sort of stuff, which is, you know, we could have come to Iceland for 2 nights, and you see it all the time, you know, Iceland expedition for 2 nights,
weekend,
especially in the winter. Come and see the Northern Lights, 2 nights and you're done. No, because actually it depends how much of the Northern Lights you want to see. Do you want to see them in a lay-by, having been escorted off a coach to go point, there's the green stuff, and then back on and off you go? Or do you want to actually go and explore? And if you want to explore, you're relying on weather being on your side. You could get lucky. We could get here. You could have been here for 6 nights and got sick of the golden sunsets.
That's true.
By night 3 or 4 and just gone, do you know what, I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
But equally, we've been here for 6 nights shooting, and you've seen that fully once. You've had other light that's good, but you've seen that working once. over 6 days.
Yeah.
So the drive-by thing really doesn't work
Doesn't
when
work.
it comes to weather.
No, exactly. Any questions? I can see my eyesight.
You can travel with people, or you can do photography. Pick one.
Yeah, that's
Says Dean.
yeah, it's a good point actually. Yeah, travel with people or do photography. Anything else?
No, you're okay. There's a question about downsizing the window on a Mac. I get an extra part added to. I think that's probably a request for Apple support, which doesn't operate out of a car in Reykjavik, I'm afraid.
I'm afraid, yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, actually, yeah, if someone finds us before we stop broadcasting, we'll give them a free Capture One license.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see a vague hint out the back. So if you can hunt us down, there you go. What's Captain Jack saying?
I'm booking my flight now. Seriously, I plan a trip next year. I'll try the Midnight Sun. Didn't know it was a thing. Yeah. So and don't get me wrong. Iceland is one place where you can get the Midnight Sun. There are others. So once you're talking Northern Hemisphere, above sort of 65 degrees. Greenland, you can get it. Svalbard, you can get it. Northern Norway, you can get it. Northern Finland, you can get it. You can get it in Northern Canada, obviously. But Iceland is one of them. What Iceland does give you is dramatic shifts in landscape. So you can go from, waterfalls to green moss to basalt rock columns within only 1,000 miles.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You do get that. Even though we have driven a lot, it's still probably more accessible than like US or Canada, where the geology wouldn't be quite so shifting in that short space of time.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's just run through. So, Paul cleaned my sensor for me. Thanks, Paul. Lot of changing lenses in high winds and everything, which
as a general rule, and there's no rules to this as such, but after every sort of 20 to 30 lens changes, just have a look at your sensor, regardless, even if you're not seeing dust spots on your pictures.
Yeah.
And especially when you're outdoors, stuff gets in there. I've had to clean a dead fly off of a sensor before for someone because they didn't check. They just left it too long, and there was this massive, great big splodge. And what's that? Oh, it's a dead insect.
Yeah.
But
sure, it's easy to retouch out or spot heal out, but it's just kind of annoying to have to do that on every picture.
Well, also, if you think about things like pano merging now,
sometimes
you're going to get the same dust spot all the way through. You're creating work for yourself.
Exactly.
It's also good practice just to keep your sensor clean, because it's not just dust. Grease builds up on it, stuff from the air.
Yeah.
So if you're shooting in cities, just bear this in mind. All the pollution and stuff that goes, people are worried goes into their nose, and you see the black stuff on the walls and stuff. If you keep your sensor out in a city, it's getting a little dose of that stuff each time, and it adds, so you get layers and layers. So keep it clean every now and then.
Talking also about other touristy areas, everyone will probably recognise this church in Reykjavik, and I ran up there with about an hour to spare by the time we got back and had to leave again. To my dismay of seeing cars parked in front of it, which I wasn't expecting. But turns out it was a wedding, so gate crashed the wedding. But another destination where really, if you want to get the whole thing in, I got around it by doing some more kind of abstract, closer up stuff, which we can look at in a minute. But yeah, that would have also been a better spot at midnight. Oh yeah, and you also got sunburnt in Iceland as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Midnight Sun.
Yeah, so you can get sunburnt here as well.
So it turns out two things will affect your ability to stay not sunburned. One is the amount of sun that you're exposed to over 24 hours.
Yeah.
And the second is trying to reshoot the same piece of video, which you won't see yet, but you will do in the future.
In the future, yeah, several times.
Yeah. Yes, many times.
Yeah.
But kids, it may be Iceland, but wear sunblock.
Wear sunblock,
yeah, we learn from that. A couple of questions. So, Pablo said I had my trip planned before COVID next year, Iceland.
Nice.
3-year delay. To be fair, the rocks haven't moved much. Pablo, don't worry. They've got a few million years of movement still to go. So you're
shrinking glaciers. And so on.
The glaciers are getting smaller, which is sad, but so come on over. It's good. Ash, have we used exposure averaging feature? I think you mean automatic frame averaging, which
you'll see in a second.
So yes, is the answer. So David's been shooting on long exposures with filters when needed.
Yeah.
I have been merrily clicking in. I'll do a 45-minute exposure, I think, today. Click.
Yeah. Much
using
easier.
that. It's a bit easier. There are some downsides and some upsides to both methods, but yes, we have been. And it does help a little bit with wind buffeting, but only when your individual frame rate is fast enough to freeze the action. You get enough frames, but we'll talk about that.
And if you don't know what frame averaging is, we
You'll
can
see.
explain it with this in a second.
Moheat, does a clip-in filter protect the sensor? Absolutely, yes, it does. But then you've got to think about cleaning your filter.
Yeah.
So one way or another,
Yep.
you're going to be cleaning something. But yes, it does protect the sensor. Bear in mind, and people get worried about cleaning their sensor. You're not touching the sensor in your camera. No, it is a
cover glass.
It's a piece of glass in front of the sensor.
Yeah.
It can be damaged if you do it badly. You know, we joked, but you know, if you get a piece of sand or grit on there and you wipe it across, you can cause some damage. But you're not damaging the sensor. It can go in for service, and it can be that glass filter can be replaced. Ideally, you wouldn't do that, but
no.
You know, I clean my sensor probably, I don't know, every 5 days of shooting, something like that. Haven't had an issue.
You haven't ruined it yet.
No.
Yeah. Oh, and Leroy asked earlier, I just remembered, said, is this your last day in Iceland? Yes, it is. Yep. We are flying back this afternoon.
Yep.
So sadly, yes. And SPF 30 is your friend.
No, SPF 30 I don't like. SPF 50 would have been my friend.
Yes, I think, Right, shall we look at your iPad and talk about frame
we can.
then?
Yep.
Hopefully it's still working. Yep, there we go. So we're connected to Paul's iPad down there.
So you can see me doing stuff.
So,
just as a bit of a sort of heads up, this is a phase 1 file. So it's a 151 megabit file. But you'll see up here on the top right on the histogram, this is 125th of a second, which obviously it's not.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the same for all of these shots at that same lighthouse. So let's pick, and there's some cool ones. Where did we go? There was one where this light just, it was actually this, oh, there it is. The sunshine just sort of beamed through. So that's not the lighthouse on.
But to give some context, hang on, let me just show the conditions, because I chickened out of sitting where Paul was. Did I include it? Yeah, here he is. So, I mean, that might give you an indication of just how cold and...
takes a lot of wind to move me.
It was super windy. It was absolutely insane on the wind front. Yeah.
So there wasn't a moment in time when things weren't buffeting and moving around. A long exposure traditionally would have required a filter on the front of it. Now a filter, also think about this, in wind is another piece of movement, another piece of, or an object to catch the wind, gets bigger and so on. So just bear in mind, adding filters on can be a problem. In this situation here, if you wanted an ND filter, screw-in is going to be your friend, not one of the slot filters.
Would have rattled around like anything.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So if you have to use filters, then fine. I'm lucky. I don't have to, because I've got something called automated frame averaging in the camera. And this is where, that's 125th of a second. But what I told the camera to do was to keep shooting 125th of a second over, I think in this case, it was probably about 40 seconds, maybe a minute. So hundreds or thousands of frames. In the camera, join them all together, average them up, hence the name, automated frame averaging, and then deliver the average result as one single raw. So we actually measured, once it was like 0.5 terabyte of data is actually crunched in the camera on an ultra long exposure. But it's still delivering 130 or 150 meg raw file. And what it does, it means that you get very, very clean shadows because all the noise is randomized. So over the period of time, that's evened out. You get really, really nice highlights because nothing really clips, which is another massive benefit for it. But more importantly, I can choose to stop whenever I want to, and the exposure is still the same. So traditionally with a filter, if I put an ND1000 in front of something, or a 10-stop filter, and then decide halfway through, or a quarter of the way through, a boat's coming in or something like that, I now have an underexposed image, which is possibly unusable. For me, whenever I stop, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, especially if it starts buffeting you or
and also because it's averaging, and going back, I can't remember the person that asked the question, but going back to the point about wind, if you imagine, because again, average is the key word, if I've taken 1,000 frames and 800 of them are nice and sharp and in the middle, and 200 have moved a little bit in the wind, I still get a sharp output. So it can really, really help with trying to deal with this sort of situation. So, we got lucky a couple of times. Well, I say we got lucky. We got brutalized
and attacked by birds,
by birds and whatever else. So, it wasn't my favorite place to shoot. However, The lighthouse wasn't on, but what was on was the sun directly behind it, which had there not been clouds would have been even better. But we did get this little break.
Really nice. Yeah.
So if I go to, let's say, pick on this one.
And the clouds will whipping.
Oh yeah, I mean,
past, weren't they? Yeah.
Like 20 seconds, and you get a whole width of the frame covered in cloud. So this is capture one for iPad, obviously. We've got our film strip that you'll be familiar with down the bottom, always in the iPad one. Your tools are here on the left. We can click here and say I want to see tools right, and that switches it across. And those tools are the familiar ones that people are used to. So I'm going to switch it back to default.
Yeah, and note the icons now match capture one. Well, they will do.
It's almost like it was planned.
Planned, yeah.
So in this case, let's prove the point about shadows. So in here we've got some really crushed shadows in that basalt column stack. So let's take those shadows and let's roll them up, and we get some nice clean output in here without noise, which is looking pretty good. Now that's lit everything up across that whole scene. I'm actually in a place of maybe this needs to be a little bit cooler. Oops, sorry, wrong way. And possibly get rid of some of that green tint out of it, just to neutralize. And what I'm looking at is these rocks on the right hand side, just to neutralize those. In terms of your HDR sliders, remember it's not all about shadow and highlight. Black and white is very useful in certain specific situations. In this case here, we've got detail here in the black that if I pull shadow up enough to get the detail in the black, everything else that was in the sort of midtones is going to be way over.
Yeah.
Looks like a cartoon again.
Yeah.
So let's go to our black instead and isolate, just pulling this up in the corner, which is really nice.
You could make it look like a cartoon, but
we can. Let's,
the data's there, but just because you can doesn't mean you should.
We can saturate it up. We can get there. Right. Another thing in the iPad app, double click on any of the wheels.
Back to zero.
You get back to zero, and then we can start all over again.
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
That's Siri. Why does it do that? So we're going to just back that black pull up away again. And again, on all these sliders, little is a lot. So if I see people with 50, 60, 70 on the HDR sliders, you may be recovering quite a lot, okay. But if I see 60 and 70 in both highlight and shadow, you're crushing that exposure.
It doesn't look good.
Now, in this histogram, you can also see we've got quite a lot of latitude up here on the right. We were slightly underexposed. The reason we're slightly underexposed is going back to that point about trying to keep each individual frame fast. So I was in a place of I want to prioritize speed of frame over maybe getting the best out of the highlights, knowing that my shadows are going to be clean anyway. So in this case here, we can actually pull up our exposure overall. So let's just pull that to there. And I'm looking up here at our histogram just to make sure that we haven't clipped anything. Now that's, again, when we do one change, look at the others, because as a result of doing that, those highlights, the shadow pulls have now become a bit flat because they're a bit too much because we pulled up exposure. So be really careful with, one tool, check the other tools afterwards, because you can push it too far if you do all of the tools all the time and push it up. Clarity, nice on here. So when we go into things like rocks and stuff like that, if we start pulling in some clarity, we get a nice definition around all those textures and all those lines. Don't push it too far. This is almost on the verge of it where you start to get some haloing along the top. It's not too bad on my screen, but on that preview, it's not looking great. Structure is a different thing. So structure, if we look at things like this grass area here and these rocks, where it's small details and texture, structure is what's going to pull that up. So if I pull that way up, you'll see it goes way too gritty. So be careful again with it. But 10 to 20, something like that, just enough to pull it up. It's all, think of it like almost like sharpening, but not quite.
But if it's not sharp to start with, it won't magically add sharpness. So
and then I guess sort of almost finally, we're in a place where I recognised that I, in the wind, could not be bothered to get it completely level. So we have actually keystone. Now I'm on a shift lens here, so I can get away with shifting the perspective, so we don't have too much of a keystone issue. But we do have a rotation problem in here. So this rotation here, let's just grab that. A grid will pop up, and I'm looking at the horizon, and we can go that way, which is obviously further making it worse. or we can go this way, and I'm just looking at that dark line on the horizon on the left-hand side to try and get it level there. That's looking much better. Might even want to crop this, so maybe we go to a 2x3 instead of a traditional 3x4. That'll do. We could load on a style. So if we went to maybe a golden hour and pretend that we got some sunshine. No, let's not. But we could go actually, let's go morning coffee, just to soften it. Ooh, that looks quite nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can play with styles. That's all within, again, Capture One for iPad. We can take that off actually. Let's just go back to our raw
Edited.
edit. But if I hold down and click, we get our before. Let go, we get our after, and this is just about recovering range and getting getting all the best out of what your camera has captured, but hasn't necessarily shown in the one single frame.
Yeah, and to continue along on Capture One, it's just a simple matter to...
Yep, we can add that to an album, and then we can go, in fact, if I go into here, we've got certain albums in here. Don't have my cloud connection on at the moment, but these albums here will go into the cloud, go onto my desktop, and they're there sat waiting.
Yeah, so if I just bring up this again, you'll see once iPad is out, which is June 28th or 29th, 28th, you'll see what we'll add in Capture One is this little cloud transfer button, and that will just allow you to pull those albums down from the cloud, and then the images you can put into a catalog, you can put into a session. You're not steered into any particular file management workflow as such.
Yeah.
So any other questions there? Squint,
Nope.
Squint.
Captain Jack saying he's quite impressed that we're broadcasting from a car in Iceland.
Yeah. Well, we thought it was either that or a boring hotel room, really, which has just got stuff all over the place. So yeah, we decided this would be a bit more interesting.
Well, frankly, it's where we've lived for a week.
It is where we've lived for a week for sure, and had questionable choices on. Oh, is that rubbish or snacks?
No, so, there you go, in here.
What?
Right, don't. Handy hint. These ones, good, crops. They're fine, they're quite nice, but these ones,
even better.
Buttery, salty crops.
Buttery, salty crops.
They're the future. They will keep you going at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Well done, Iceland, basically. That is the winning snack of...
That's your top photography tip of the day.
Of choice, buy crops on the road. While this picture's up, we won't keep you for much longer. If we just do a Capture On before and after. So that's how it came out of camera, which is not bad, actually. It was pretty good. But what I wanted to show was, I think Paul said something along the lines on one of these broadcasts, I don't know, it's all a blur. It's like use the tool where it's, most appropriate. And I did this at like 4 o'clock this morning, so I can't quite remember what I did. But this was just some extra clarity in the rocks because there's loads of spray. It's a little bit hard to see. Wasn't too bad on that side. This side, there was a little bit more spray because the wind was not always going in that direction.
And if you've done clarity in this case, if you've done it across the whole image, those issues about things like halos over the edges and stuff, that's what you're going to see. So use it selectively. You don't have to apply all these tools to everything.
There's a little bit globally, but to then get it to where I wanted with the rocks, it would have been, way up there, and that's just overkill for everything else. And also dehaze as well. The spray dehaze doesn't have to be about atmospheric haze. It's anything that adds haze to the shot. Now I still need to mess around with the color a little bit in the shadows, but that was just a little extra bit of dehazing nice. up in that corner. Again, not to completely remove it, because what's the point of shooting a waterfall if you're going to get rid of all the haze? So that was just to take a little touch.
Some would argue, what's the point in putting floodlights on a waterfall?
Yeah, so if you look, so down in the corner here, that's actually a floodlight. It's not some wonderful sunbeam or something like that. They actually put a floodlight, which is kind of crazy because it makes no difference at this time of year at all, I would add.
And in the winter, it's going to end up covered in snow. Well, melted maybe a little bit, but covered in snow.
And there was, hang on, where are the people? There we go. So there was a few people wandering up and down this slippery steps, but and also I'm not sure what this was. There was like some pole of some description. No idea. Probably a light, another floodlight or something. A sign or whatever. But then just healing those people out does make it look a little bit more untouched by nature. Maybe there was someone behind the waterfall as well, or that guy swimming in it potentially. But yeah, like the healing brush is just great for taking those few bits and pieces out. And as for Wreck Church, because I couldn't get the whole lot in because tourists had the audacity to go and visit it, of course, then I decided to just go a bit more abstract. Well, it actually worked out all right in the end, to be honest. But I specifically brought a 12 to 24 lens with me to try and get the whole thing in.
Well, you could have done.
I could have
You
done.
could have sold the pictures to the wedding party.
Yeah, well, I did do crack off a nice shot of the wedding couple, actually. Where was it? Oh, I didn't include them all in, but yeah, there we go.
If that's your wedding, hi.
Yeah, hi. Yes, I thought I didn't want to be that guy to then go and stand next to the photographer who's doing a brilliant job, actually, I have to say, with about 3 bodies swinging around him, and crash the wedding in that respect. So yeah, unfortunately not exactly what I wanted, but it worked out right in the end. And that's also a great example where a little bit of structure goes a long way just to bring up the concrete and so on. But never mind, didn't get the shot I wanted, but there we go. Any other questions there?
Arthur's saying best solution could be a 4x4 auto caravan, perhaps. I'm like, no, I like the fact that I can close a door on him.
Yeah.
At least for a few hours every day.
We did see a lot. There's a lot of camper vans you can rent in Iceland now. And we've seen some nice camper vans, and we've seen some
cheapo,
really cheap like not even a van. I would say like a small delivery van that can just about fit a double mattress in the back of it and nothing else.
With no insulation.
No insulation, nothing. And bearing in mind it's daylight pretty much all the time, I think that would be really difficult to enjoy your week away in
so these are,
like
but
that.
We're not talking about like you've made it at home. These are proper commercial rental ones. So just like with cars, absolutely, get the most economical one you can. I mean, yesterday, what did we do? 900 and something odd kilometers.
Yeah.
It's not cheap driving around places anymore, as everyone in the world knows. But, on the same count, after we feel pretty tired already, having actually had hotel nights and stuff.
Yeah.
If you're not sleeping through the night in a cold, bright, cheapo camper van,
slightly
maybe
condensation full
maybe tick the upgrade box for $1 a day.
Get the decent camper van for sure with good blackout blinds. Oh, actually, that was the shop behind the waterfall, and ideally we didn't want any of that stuff there, did we?
The sun where David's mouse is was just to the left of that.
It's about there,
and it hung there, and obviously went down during sunset. And the clouds did not move; they just wouldn't move. We were so close to having something decent.
Which is putting there's some guy in there somewhere probably as well. But what can you do? You can't control the weather. Oh, I did a little pano as well, just for fun. That was like a 6 or 7 shot pano. If I uncrop that, let's just reset that crop. And I took particular care in actually leveling the tripod, and it's actually worked out well. The telltale sign if your tripod's not completely level as you turn the head, of course.
Your S shape.
Yep, and then it starts to. The pano doesn't actually stitch quite well.
It's normal in a panoramic stitch to see these bulges because that's actually that's the lens barrel effectively. So you're getting the rounded sort of humps, but they should be level. They should be on the same line. Yep. If they're not, I know people will say, yeah, but I did keep it level. No, you didn't. If this is happening and it's doing the sort of wave through the scene, you didn't keep it level. It may be a tiny amount, it may be a fraction, but
it's just amplified, isn't it?
Especially on a wider lens.
Yeah, definitely. What I should have done was shot that portrait, and I did it landscape, but that's my schoolboy error. What was the question there from?
Captain Jack saying you could have added an ND filter and done a long exposure to get rid of the people at the church, not the wedding, of course. I think David's issue was the wedding was there permanently.
Yeah, and the cars, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. If it had been a few members of the public. Another thing, just bear in mind with a photographer hat on, we always think that, there's a person in my shot, there's someone in the way or whatever else. The average non-photographer spends about 30 seconds in a place.
Yeah.
They stand there, they take their picture and then move on. So general rule, chill out, relax. They'll be gone in a while. Or, as he says, use an ND filter. Yeah. If you were to do a 5-minute exposure and the person's in there for 30 seconds, they're pretty much going to ghost out. You're not going to see them.
What I was thinking of was taking a lot of exposures and then doing
Averaging them.
doing a bit of manual averaging
Yeah.
and photoshopping out the people. But I think this was the wedding party. There's also a e-scooter dumped at the front as well. So I was a bit bitter about the whole experience, but they had just as every right to be there compared to me, of course. So there we go. I think that's it for.
Dean's just saying it's muddy
Was
and
it?
slippery behind the falls. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as I thought, Sorry, I've lost my cursor. There it is. Over here, that was Dave. Muddy and slippery. It was okay.
The problem you have in Seljalandsfoss is, so just to be clear, yesterday evening we fully touristed it up and went to two of the biggest iconic places that you can go to shoot.
Yeah.
And if you're there in the day, there are, and in some cases, hundreds, if not thousands, of people.
Because that was, I haven't edited this, but that was Skogafoss, wasn't it? Yeah.
And
Which
a
was
few
also
days,
empty.
we'd driven by a few days before, and you couldn't. There was literally more people than water.
Yeah.
You couldn't see the falls almost at the base because of the sea of people. Now, hence there is scope here. So yes, they're the tourist shots. Yes, they're the hot spots. But by going there in the middle of the night, you've still got light. You've still got some color in the sky. Not perfect, by far not what we wanted.
Yeah,
but
unfortunately.
you can get these places empty, and it's great. So 1, use a filter. 2, get up at midnight.
Yeah.
Either way.
There you go. That was auto adjust.
But sorry. The reason I just remembered, the reason I was mentioning that Seljalandsfoss, the walkway that goes behind the waterfall when it's busy is not fun.
No, not
because
fun at all.
You've got people that are actually unsteady.
Yeah.
A bit concerned about falling, also getting very wet. People sort of dart in and out when they're getting soaked. And that's quite a confined space. So to some people, that's not the best place to be. If you're there in the middle of the night, well, you've got it to yourself.
Yeah, there was no rush at all. So and I guess if you're coming from the US, then you can just take advantage of your jet lag. Yeah, just don't try and counteract the jet lag.
Yeah,
just go with the flow. That would be a brilliant holiday, actually.
But back to my point the other day.
Yeah,
this stuff. Really useful for 2 things. Number 1, fixing everything photographically. Number 2, dealing with curtains in hotel rooms that don't fit.
Yeah, which is
actually a massive problem.
Yeah.
Anyway,
there we go. Cool. So thanks for joining us this week. Just to recap, we will run a competition to win an image from this trip. More on that, towards June and July. We just figure out the finer points of that. The purpose of being here was to put the iPad through its paces, of course, and also to shoot some content for that when iPad comes along. There we go. There's Paul's iPad again. And to put all of that through its paces, and it's a good learning experience for me as well. So you can see how many pictures we take of exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Which again you couldn't do with family in tow or whatever. Pick people or photography. That's a great tip. Last question, I think.
Captain Jack saying getting up at midnight's no issue with me. It's 3:37 a.m. here in Seattle.
Seattle, yeah.
So, cool.
Perfect.
Yeah, but and there's it's funny. There's lots of people that didn't go to Iceland. Actually, it's weird. Someone asked the question the other day on the Instagram thing about, is it over photographed? And I'll repeat it again. It is not over photographed. There are too many tourists here, and that's a big thing. But it's fun if you get the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And there's some fantastic light around. There's some fantastic places.
Yeah.
Yes, they may be honeypot locations, but there's a reason, because they look great. It's just about finding the way of getting there without necessarily all the crowds. And there are still ways of doing that in Iceland.
Yeah.
From Europe, it's a relatively quick flight.
Yeah.
From the US, they do all the stopover stuff and everything like that. Yeah. It's all good. Someone earlier asked about, can I recommend, go on up. Keep going. There was a question about center cleaning. So again, loads of them out there. I use one called Visible Dust, which is a Canadian company, I believe. They are not cheap. So just the swabs that go into them are quite expensive for what they are. It's a piece of plastic with a cloth on the front of it. There are lots of handmade solutions. You can do it yourself with different things. It's basically an alcohol wipe, but I've seen people using non-swabs and it goes wrong. There's residue left all over the place and there's too much liquid in there.
Don't lick it and wipe it with your t-shirt or whatever.
I'm in a place. I'm in a place where, you know, if you're looking at, it's sort of $20 to $40 for a pack of whatever 12 normal swabs. It sounds like a lot for 12 bits of plastic, but in reality, if that saves your sensor and saves your shot,
better than $800 fixing it or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And we got a Skogafosfact, I think. No, Selangefosfact. Means forest waterfall. There we go.
See, every day's a learning day.
Every day is a learning day. Thanks, Leroy, our native tour guide as well.
Thomas has just asked, do they sell medium format swabs as well? Yes, they do, Thomas. They're called MXD and they are 42 to 44 millimeter swabs. So they go width-wise, they don't go top to bottom. So you can get APS-C, you can get full frame, and you can get full medium format ones. I think they've brought out the crop medium format ones for the baby ones. But I don't know what those ones are. But the ones that I have are MXD 42 to 44.
Looking forward to the iPad version. Maybe get rid of my Mac. Well, it depends really. Like some people are really sold on iPad workflow. I'm happy to use both. Some people don't want to use iPads at all. I think it just depends really how it fits into your workflow. So
I'm not going to get rid of my Mac.
No, nor would I, to be honest.
So as a companion app, while you're out in the field, it's great. Things like, take that lighthouse shot.
Yeah.
There is no way I can or would check that camera out on that ledge, being pummeled by the wind for sharpness. Now, and also, I wouldn't have a Digitech set up with a tether.
No,
at that point.
No, you wouldn't pull out your laptop to then.
I can get back to the car, and then view it on a bigger screen, and check for sharpness and whatever, and then go back out if I need to. So for that stuff, fantastic. For quick, what can I make this look like? Yeah, great.
Just to remind you of the conditions.
That's not a tether or a Mac situation.
No.
So there are use cases for both, but I would suggest that people play with the iPad app, work out how it fits into their workflow. But I think you're going to find that you still do your main edit on a full desktop client because it's got more flexibility at the moment.
Exactly. At the moment, and as we've said, the iPad app will continue to mature. The first thing we're going to add is tethering, and then you guys have requested other tools which will get added as well, and it will just get bigger and better all the time. So
Arthur just wants to know if we're planning to visit Portugal.
Sure, why not?
We have changeable flights, so where are we coming? Where are we going?
Exactly. Okay, so I'll actually be live tomorrow back at home.
You're going to look so bad.
I'm going to look terrible, yes. So I'm going to do a live just going in a bit more depth about the new features that are coming in 15.3. I don't know when that is. My team that I work with figured that out whilst I was away. So at some point, I'm going live tomorrow. And then also back on Thursday with normal scheduled webinars. Are you going to do anything this week?
No, we've got masterclass on Golden Hour, funnily enough, on the 21st.
There we go. So more details on Paul's website as well.
Do you want the awkward question?
What's that?
Arthur's just asked.
Well, was it?
iPhone Capture One Pro version is in the future.
We've spoken about it. It's not a terrible idea at all, but I think we just have to figure out where that fits into the workflow. Like when is an iPhone useful compared to an iPad, compared to a laptop, and so on. It's not a big step to take learnings from iPad and shrink that into an iPhone, but you couldn't just take that interface and dump it onto a different form factor screen. So I think it's more of a question, how does it fit into the workflow? What's the pain points it would solve? How much of that iPad experience should go into the iPhone and how little, and so on. But we've definitely spoken about it. And then if your iPhone gets bigger and bigger, as they tend to do.
Well, I guess with the iPhone, there's sort of two use cases. One is the edit use case, which, and again, to your point, you've got to work out what's viable on the phone.
Exactly, and how the UI works.
The second would be the tether scenario. So absolutely, if I could have my phone next to my camera and be able to, really pinch in and see what's going on, that has some real value to it
as well.
But in order to do that, you've got to get tethering working for all cameras. So in order to do that, you've got to do that for iPad first.
Yes.
So there's a process to go through to get to the point where those things are useful. But,
so I think research into the pain points. How can we solve that? You couldn't, on this phone, you've seen how the interface works, you couldn't quite have the same setup for all best purposes. So, yeah, but we shall figure it out. Who knows?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Alrighty. Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us carpool karaoke style.
We got to go pack.
Yeah, now we've got to go pack. So we shall do that and enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody. So take care and thanks for listening in. We appreciate it. See you later. Bye.